So why don't tourists return to Vietnam? If you do a quick search online for visitor return rates, you'll discover that Vietnam has a shockingly low rate of return of about 5 to 10%. That means just 5 or 10% of all tourists who come to Vietnam for the first time return at a later date, which leaves a whopping 90 to 95% who never want to come back. Whereas our friends in Thailand, just across the way, enjoy an enviable rate of 46%. That's if you believe Gemini. So what are we doing wrong? Is Vietnam really disliked that much? In fact, just about everywhere you look online, you'll find reports stating that Vietnam's one of those tick and flick destinations. I just made that up. Where once you've done it, you don't want to come back. Tick off the list, then flick it. Why is that? Well, the reasons given range from things like poor infrastructure. Vietnam's notoriously challenging to navigate on the ground. Roads, highways and bridges are still being developed and they're often jammed with traffic. And then there's just one railway line from north to south, imaginatively called the North-South Railway Line, that was originally constructed by the French when they were here back in the early 1900s and then rebuilt and reopened shortly after it had the shit bombed out of it during the war that ended back in 75. Air travel here is generally fine, with a new domestic terminal having just been completed here in Ho Chi Minh City and a brand new international airport out of town due for completion next year. But flying here is known for being racked with delays. You know, the announcement,
Fly MVL419 arriving from Hanoi is delayed due to late arrival.
Other gripes about the Vietnam experience include the quality of hospitality, the immigration and visa application processes, the degradation of the environment and trash disposal practices, air pollution, scams, the language barrier, Disneyland-like resorts and villages that redline the sustainability index, and the big one, know-it-all white guys mansplaining the herbaceous subtleties of the differences between pho in the north and pho in the south. I made that one up too. But the list goes on. I think you get the picture. And I can understand all of this after living here for more than 15 years. I've experienced plenty of examples from the list above. And that was just last week. And you may have even travelled here. So let me know your experiences in the comments. And while you're at it, sub up if you haven't and give this video a chance to be seen by the great unwashed. Now, the only problem I can see with all of this, apart from tourists seemingly being soft these days, is that I can't actually track down the origins of this 5 to 10% return rate that everyone keeps talking about. Like, where did it come from? Well, another quick search, thanks AI, revealed there's actually been no research done whatsoever, or academic reports made publicly available backed up by peer review evaluation that provides reliable or even remotely reliable data on visitor return rates since at least 2018, when VNAT, the Vietnam National Authority of Tourism, last released their figures when they reported return rates being at somewhere between 33 and 40%. Even then, I have no idea what measurement was used to gather data. Somehow, this 5 or 10% return rate has found its way into the public domain and, like warm shit to a blanket, has stuck. Which makes me wonder, if people are pulling numbers out of thin air, how legit are Thailand's figures? Let me know what you think. Now, the inspiration for this video came about thanks to a recent Toi Chair News article that popped up on my Facebook feed. Toi Chair is one of the longest running newspapers in Vietnam, and by all reports it's reliable. At least that's what they tell us. The article in question was this one: what does Vietnamese tourism need to keep visitors coming back? In summary, the article says that perhaps Vietnam still lacks the ability to tell a compelling human-centered story about its destinations, and that tourists from Europe and America don't come to Vietnam for electronic music, light shows or seafood buffets, but rather seek slowness, deep cultural immersion and authentic local connections. Yeah, I dig that. But is this actually true? Again, where's the research to back up this less than compelling claim? Are you starting to see a pattern too? The author goes on to say that important questions like the following must be asked. How long do tourists stay? How much do they spend? And do they want to come back? Yeah. So what I'd be asking is, why haven't they been asked yet? So if you've travelled to Vietnam recently, let me know if you were surveyed about your experience here. And I'm not talking about whether you thought the pizza was good at 4Ps. That's an inside joke for those of you who live here. But seriously, please let me know if anyone actually shoved a questionnaire in your face at any time while you were here and asked if you had a good time. Now, the author of the article in question sinks their boots even further into the midriff of tourism decision makers here in Vietnam by saying that Vietnam needs a new approach to tourism, one that is thoughtful, fulfilling, meaningful, and offers choice. And they also say that what remains consistently missing is a clear policy that connects destination branding with distinctive visitor experiences. Now, I'd argue they're probably right here. I mean, what is Vietnam Tourism's Live Fully in Vietnam slogan trying to achieve when it's targeted at international tourists who might be planning to stay here for just 2 weeks? But then I'd argue that tourists themselves, especially YouTubers, are already doing a lot of the heavy lifting and actually telling compelling human-centered stories about Vietnam and their experiences here. Sure, there's a lot of misleading and false stuff out there with plenty of mayo that embellishes what it's really like to travel here. We all know the competition for views is real, but there's also a lot of really good stuff too that portrays Vietnam in a positive light as a tourist destination. And that's actually pretty much on the money in terms of authenticity. Perhaps those in charge need to follow the lead of the people Vietnam's actually trying to target to improve on their marketing campaigns and social media to get some ideas. Just a thought. Of course, the article in Toy Chair drew a lot of social media attention on their Facebook page, attracting over 500 comments with suggestions for improvement like these. Faster passport controls at airports, better museums that are clean with good translations, reduce horn usage, develop local architecture, not imitate Italian and French designs, beautiful beaches with public access, keep it traditional, don't modernise, a mindset change with regard to waste disposal, longer visas and accept driving licences from all nations, permanent resident cards for retirees, stop ripping off tourists, and fix the air pollution. Are there any others that should be added to the list? I'm sure there are, let me know. I'd be very interested to hear them. So what of all this? Well, it's pretty obvious that the first port of call is that data needs to be collected, if it isn't already, from tourists to get a picture of just how well or badly Vietnam tourism is performing and to measure their intentions as to whether they'd come back or not. And from that, the data could be used to develop some kind of strategy to make things better. How hard can it be? And some final thoughts I'd like to add are that expectations need to be managed. There's no point banging on about Vietnam's timeless charm when in reality there's nothing charming about the immigration process or the taxi scams that greet arrivees at our airports or the rip-off artists lurking around Ben Thanh Market here in Saigon. But at the same time, tourists need to actually do their homework on Vietnam so they can check their own expectations before they're hit with the humidity and the hum of the waiting masses just outside the arrival's door. I mean, what do you expect if you're travelling on a budget, staying in cheap hotels and eating at places where in all likelihood staff are working long hours, sometimes 6 days a week, and earn just $200 a month? Do you really expect them to roll out the red carpet for you? In addition, what do you expect if you just choose to shop where every other tourist shops? Or you sign up to package tours or day trips that offer experiences that contribute little to your understanding of a country and its culture, and give very little back to local communities. If that's you, then expect to get scammed and have a shitty time. That's on you, no one else. Thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing your comments, and I'll see you in the next one.